I felt so tired. I felt so weary. Like, is this how it's going to continue? Record, edit, post, create excerpts, prepare again. It looked so tiresome. And I looked up and I just said, God, this is not fair at all. This is not fair. I don't like this. All right, welcome to AJ Sports with Ezekarel. And Ezekarel, thank you so much for coming around. I hope that you will definitely be impacted by all that you listen to on this very episode of AJ Sports with Ezekarel. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of AJ Sports with Ezekarel. How have you been doing? How was the month of June for you? Today, the release date of this episode is the 30th of June 2025, which is the last day in the first half of this year. And so we are going to be looking at the first 6 months of AJ Sports with Ezekarel. I've uploaded about 15 episodes in total, and we have about 113 views on Spotify and 154 views on YouTube. We have about 11 comments on Spotify, while we have about 25 likes and 5 comments on YouTube. This data doesn't include YouTube Shorts and Spotify clips that are shared on each respective platforms. The reason for this episode is to look back at the first 6 months of this podcast to share some statistical data, to share my routine in recording a single episode for this podcast, to share my journey and experiences for the past 6 months, to share ideas behind previous episodes, to share ideas concerning coming new episodes, to make some announcements to the changes that will be happening to this podcast in general, and also to appreciate those who have contributed, supported, and listened to this podcast. So let's get right into it. My routine for recording an episode for this podcast, I start off with choosing a topic of interest, then I write an outline. The outline is like a structure that guides me through everything I talk on for each episode. And the outline contains keynotes like definition and other important informations I researched on while preparing for each episode. Then next up, I go ahead to record an episode. I record with my phone. For the first 12 episodes, I recorded with a Techno Camon 20. And then the last 3 episodes, I recorded with an iPhone 12 Pro. And I think the audio for the first 12 episodes that I recorded with the Techno Camon 20 was wonderful. I did not do a lot of audio editing after recording because the audio was quite clear. Then when I started using the iPhone 12 Pro, the audio was good, but not as good as when I was using my Techno Camon 20. And then recently, I discovered that there is a way to adjust the audio while recording on the iPhone 12 Pro, and it makes the audio much better. So I'm not using a microphone currently. I also record during midnight hours when everywhere is silent, nobody's moving around, no noise interfering with my recording. But recently, in the last episode, I actually recorded in the day, and I discovered a feature on the iPhone that is able to remove all noise while recording, and my voice is just what you'll be hearing with the background noise very dim or not audible at all, which makes recording on the iPhone much better now. Most of my recordings are an average of 45 minutes long, and this is because sometimes while recording, some background noise become too loud, or I make mistake in what I'm talking on, and so I have to record a portion again. And then when I'm done recording, it's time to edit the audio. And this takes a long time for me because I am trying to clean up the audio, remove unwanted parts, and make the audio sound good. But recently, I discovered a feature on the iPhone 12 Pro that is able to allow me edit the audio while recording. So while recording, if I feel like I need to retake a portion, I can shift the timeline on the audio recorder and take that part again, which means I don't have to wait till I'm editing the audio before removing any unwanted part. Sometimes I also do audio cleanup to remove some speech or vocal sounds that shouldn't be in the podcast. And I'm glad I'm sharing all of this because you don't have to wait till you have all the podcast equipment before you can start a podcast if you are thinking of doing so. You can start with your phone, record in a quiet place or record during the midnight hours, and also you can edit with your phone as well. There is an app that I use a couple of times. It is Wavepad Audio Editor. It's available on Android devices. You can use it to edit your podcast audio. And the app is very good for audio editing because it's also similar to their software for computers. I need to add that after a couple of days, I take time to create excerpts, reels from the entire podcast, and I share on Instagram and YouTube. But I'll be honest, it has not been easy doing this podcast. It has not been easy at all. On some days, it's quite stressful trying to find time to record in the midnight after having a long day. On some other days, you are trying to battle with NEPA because you don't have lights to edit your audio, so you are trying to rush. Or I moved to my Samsung tab, which is a smaller screen and makes it difficult for me to edit audio because of my vision. And it's not been easy juggling this alongside other responsibilities in so many areas. And when I was recording the last episode, the previous night, I tried recording the episode, but there was sounds of crickets and I was so fed up because I didn't know what to do. I was tired and I was fed up. I said, no, I can't do this. I'm not ready for this. And then the next day I tried again. And while recording, I felt so tired. I felt so weary. Like, is this how it's going to continue? Record, edit, post, create excerpts, prepare again. It looked so tiresome. And I looked up and I just said, God, this is not fair at all. This is not fair. I don't like this. It was after I said that and just relaxing a bit that I discovered that feature on the iPhone that allows me to be able to edit audios while recording. And I was so grateful to God because I couldn't believe I had recorded and I didn't need to spend hours editing the audio or fine-tuning the audio. I also need to be honest and share how I felt God strengthening me on some days, whether it was when I wanted to record the podcast, whether I was preparing the outline for the podcast, researching, or when I was editing the audio. I felt God strengthening me on different days. I also need to add that when uploading each episode on Spotify and YouTube, I use ChatGPT to come up with good podcast descriptions and good podcast titles for each episode. So what were the ideas behind the previous episodes that I've uploaded? I'd say starting off this podcast, I didn't have a structure, a list of topics that I wanted to talk on, but God has been giving me inspirations and ideas on topics to talk about on this podcast. I plan on starting with what the podcast is all about. Then the next episode, I'll share my salvation story. Then the episodes after that, I'll talk about the gospel. But God gave me an idea that, wait, this podcast is about Jesus Christ. Why not introduce who Jesus is? And I did 4 episodes about Jesus. One was on his human nature, one was on his divine nature, one was on the facts whether Jesus Christ claimed to be God, and the other was asking you, my listeners, who Jesus Christ is to you. Then in the month of February, because February is known as the month of love, I got an inspiration to do the topic, if God loves everybody, why doesn't he save everybody? And then after that, I plan to do some episodes on evangelism, the gospel, and then Easter was approaching, and I decided to do a topic on whether the gospels, which is the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are reliable and historically accurate. Then I decided to do the topic on, did Jesus Christ actually die and resurrect? And after that month, in the month of April, I took a break in the month of May. And I did a post saying that I'll start up in June talking about some social issues like abortion. But as I was planning to start that, God gave me an inspiration to do an episode on secularism, the secular culture. And as I was doing that, another idea came to do an episode on the work culture. And as I was planning that, I got an inspiration to do an episode on cancel culture. And what I like about this set of inspirations I got is how you see how secular culture is what has led to woke culture, which has led to cancel culture, which surrounds all the social issues I wanted to talk about. So after talking about cancel culture, I planned on talking about abortion and then the transgender movement. But last week, I got an inspiration that the topics on abortion and the LGBTQ plus community all surround a major issue on identity, which leads me to share ideas I have for coming episodes here on this podcast. From the inspiration I got last week, talking about the topics on abortion and the LGBTQ plus community, how it surrounds issues on identity, I realized that people have different questions surrounding 5 major aspects of life. Number 1 is origin. How did the world come into existence and why is it the way it is? Number 2 is identity. Who am I really? Who am I really? Number 3 is meaning. What's the meaning of life? Why are we all here? Why are we doing what we are doing? Number 4 is morality. Why am I living my life according to these standards or set of beliefs? And what I am doing, is it right or wrong? And how do I know if it's right or actually wrong? Number 5 is destiny. Where am I going when I leave this earth? These are all important questions surrounding every aspect of a man's life. So we are going to start from the beginning. Origin, pun intended. We are going to look at the scientific beliefs of how the universe came into existence, the Big Bang theory, and the theory of evolution. And then we'll look at what the Christians believe on how God created the world. We'll also look at what the Muslims believe on how Allah created the world and why it is the way it is today. We are also going to look at other minor worldviews about how the world came into existence. And then after that, we go into the topics on identity. And then after that, we go into meaning, morality, and destiny. So I'll bring up different topics along the way on these 5 important areas of life. What are the changes I'll be bringing to this podcast generally? Number 1 is that I'll be changing the podcast cover design. I'll be making a new design and everyone will see it when I upload my next episode. I'll also be creating a TikTok account where I'll be sharing excerpts from previous and upcoming episodes. And on Instagram and TikTok, I'll be creating videos responding to videos that I feel need a response from an unapologetic apologist like me. So follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at Ezekarel, Ezekarel. Now to the appreciation. I want to thank everyone who has contributed, supported, and listened to this podcast from the very beginning. I want to thank God's Love Emmanuel. He was the one that helped me design the podcast cover. Thank you so much, God's Love. I also want to thank Prista. She was the one that helped me to come up with the tagline, Apologetics for Jesus, Simplified Apologetics. I also want to thank her because she's helped me to come up with various podcast descriptions in the past. And I know she would help me in future episodes. So thank you so much, Praise. And lastly, I'd like to give an honorable mention to Sochima Dim. She has been the most active listener on this podcast with the most comments here on this podcast. Thank you so much, Sochima. I'd also want to say a very big thank you to everyone who has listened, liked, and commented on this podcast. Even if I didn't mention your name, I might not be able to see it, but God sees it. And I want to say a very big thank you and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much for listening to the end of this episode. Now you know how the journey has been for me thus far. You know some of my struggles. I know how God has been strengthening me. You know how each episode gets to you, my listeners. And you know what's to come on this podcast. Please remember to like this podcast, drop a comment, and share with your friends and family, share on your social media platforms, and let people be blessed by what is coming on this podcast. Happy New Month in advance. I pray for a better second half of the year, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.